Part 14. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 131. Let's go. What's the matter with the light bulb? Wang Ling glared at him. That sentence sounded awkward. But the instructor didn't care and just laughed. After the fat cow left, Wang Ling said with a smile, "Come on, instructor, don't waste time here, I will take you to see the dormitory." As he spoke, he took the instructor directly to the dormitory. Behind them, Xiao He has been following, but before entering the dormitory, Wang Ling ordered it alone. "Xiao He, you can play outside for a while." Woof. Xiao He also cooperated very well, wagging his tail and squatting next to the dormitory door, very well behaved. The instructor looked at Xiao He and smiled, "Is this the police dog you raised? Not bad." As he spoke, he even touched Xiao He's forehead. Xiao He was somewhat resistant, but with Wang Ling here, it didn't do anything, and it still stood guard obediently. After entering the dormitory, Wang Ling asked the instructor to sit on the bed, then poured him a glass of warm water and handed it to the instructor before asking, "Instructor, why did you suddenly find yourself here?" The instructor took the teapot, took a sip of hot water, and spoke slowly, "I asked Adjutant Tianyu to find out. It took him a long time to tell me. Originally, those little brats from the 5th Company also wanted to come together, but I scolded them back. What kind of behavior would it be for us to come here together?" Wang Lingson laughed. "If we come together, imagine the scene. Maybe it will get out of control." The instructor put down the teapot, then looked at Wang Ling and praised, "I have heard all about your performance on the battlefield, and I have even watched the video of you sweeping through the Allied base. Well done, you are worthy of being my leader. Soldiers who come out will have a bright face when they say they have come out." "Ha ha." Wang Ling giggled. But the instructor changed the topic and sighed, "As for why you came to this police dog training base, I have also heard the reason." When this topic was brought up, Wang Ling's smile suddenly stopped and he couldn't help but fell silent. But the instructor, as if he could understand Wang Ling's heart, spoke slowly, "Tianyu said that you suddenly fell ill during the final attack and were arranged to come here to recuperate, but I always feel that the reason is a bit far-fetched. You little bastard, are you suddenly scared while you were fighting?" Wang Ling pursed his lips and wanted to argue, but considering the gap between the two worlds, he could only nodded with a wry smile. I thought the instructor was going to scold him, but unexpectedly, the instructor took a deep breath and sighed. "When I learned the news, I was worried and angry, but later, I felt relieved. It has been really difficult for you these days. You were assigned to the battlefield so long in advance. It is not easy for you to be able to endure those hardships until now. In fact, sometimes I also think, if you are not afraid, I have always maintained my peak condition and fought on the battlefield, what will be the result now?" Wang Ling raised his head and looked at the instructor, but he couldn't answer this question at all. The instructor asked and answered his own question, "Perhaps, you will achieve greater military exploits. However, you may also die under the enemy's fire. Every time I dream about that scene, I will wake up with fear, for fear that you will really something happened. Fortunately, you, a bastard, knew how to be afraid and didn't rush too hard. It's great to see you now." Seeing the instructor's earnest words, Wang Ling suddenly felt a tug in his heart. But before he could answer anything, the instructor said again, "Up to now, our 5th Company has almost completed the training that it should have. After passing the assessment next week, it will be sent to the battlefield. Don't you think so?" He said, "The battlefield is really a good place to perform meritorious service. You went from being a first-class soldier to a sergeant so quickly. Maybe I will already be a second lieutenant when we meet again next time." At this point, the instructor couldn't help laughing. But Wang Ling smiled, but felt a little uncomfortable. He knew very well what his instructor's attitude was towards the battlefield. He had experienced too many partings, and seeing that he would soon be fighting with his soldiers, he would inevitably feel conflicted in his heart. He was even as scared as Wang Ling. However, when facing Wang Ling, the instructor did not mention this at all. He was clearly taking care of Wang Ling's current mood. Wang Ling silently remembered all of this. Even though this instructor seemed very dignified on weekdays, he was actually very talkative. When he was with Wang Ling, he was talking most of the time while Wang Ling was listening. However, there was no embarrassment between the two. They chatted for a long time, talking about some trends on the battlefield, some interesting stories about the barracks, and Wang Ling's experience in the training base. Unknowingly, the two of them chatted in the dormitory for a long time, and finally finished talking about all the topics they could think of. The instructor then stood up and patted Wang Ling on the shoulder. "Come on, Wang Ling, when you return to the battlefield, I believe I will see a stronger soldier, both physically and mentally." Wang Ling nodded heavily, then went out with Xiao He, and sent the instructor out of the base. Seeing him get on the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle and leave, he sighed leisurely. "In the end, I still have to go to the battlefield, and it's not just me. And my original brothers and instructors. When will this war end?" "Hey, boy, you're being pretentious again." Just as he was sighing, Uncle Hay struck. "Red Alert World, Red Alert World, without war, would it still be called Red Alert World?" Wang Ling was speechless, but Uncle Hay continued, "It's not impossible for you to stop the war." "Huh? What should I do?" Wang Ling became interested. Uncle Hay replied, "Stop the war with war. In the world of Red Alert, the Allies are very powerful and will not admit defeat. Since your coalition leaders are willing to accept this war, they will naturally not give up. If you want to stop it, then become more powerful, become a high-ranking general of the coalition, have the right to speak, and win over the Allies." "Want to end the war with war?" Wang Ling muttered these 4 words and laughed at himself. "It doesn't sound simple." "Nonsense. It can be completed easily. What's the point of designing this Red Alert world?" Uncle Hay reprimanded. "Boy, don't go astray. Enter the Red Alert world, live, and become more and more awesome. The stronger you are, this is what you should do. If you are afraid of death and are cowardly, then you will never have a chance to become stronger and you will only be a coward for the rest of your life." Although it is just an artificial intelligence brain, Uncle Hay's emotional attitude also makes him look down on Wang Ling's current state. In order to rekindle Wang Ling's fighting spirit, Uncle Hay worked really hard. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 132. Why is Wang Ling afraid? It involves 2 worlds. Only Uncle Hay knows the reason now. Naturally, only he can fundamentally persuade Wang Ling. But Wang Ling didn't appreciate it very much. "Come on, Uncle Hay, how much does it mean to me to risk your life and become so powerful? I don't belong to this virtual world." Uncle Hay was caught off guard by these words. With his artificial intelligence's reflexes, he didn't know how to continue persuading him. He simply sighed and said nothing more. "Woof woof." As if aware of Wang Ling's discomfort, Xiao He hurriedly called out twice and rubbed Wang Ling's thigh, as if he was comforting Wang Ling. Wang Ling knelt down, rubbed Xiao He's forehead vigorously, and smiled from the bottom of his heart. "Xiao He, it's better for you. You can always stay with me." Xiao He was wagging his tail vigorously and bending his eyes, looking like he was enjoying himself. Afterwards, Wang Ling sighed and gradually put the instructor's visit into his mind, then took Xiao He back to the training base and continued to clean Xiao He's kennel. Just as Wang Ling thought, the battlefield is very cruel. No one can be spared from being trapped in the quagmire of war, not even the 5th instructor, a veteran of the battlefield. Wang Ling never imagined that this farewell to the instructor would be the last time he saw his respected instructor in the Red Alert world. Wang Ling would not be sent to the battlefield until Wang Ling looked away, or before Xiao He had not trained for the prescribed time. Taking advantage of this time, Wang Ling simply stepped down and started training on police dogs, living peacefully at the base. However, after all, his comrades and instructors from the barracks were about to enter the battlefield. Wang Ling occasionally felt uneasy and pestered Lu Hui and the commander to ask about their status. But the battlefield was too vast, with too many war zones, and those people were not well known. For a while, Lu Hui and the commander could not get any news about them. After pestering them for a long time, some news finally came: the original group of comrades are now safe. After hearing the news, Wang Ling felt relieved. Fei Niu persuaded him at the right time: "Brother Ling, you don't have to worry so much. People have their own destiny, and nothing can happen to them." Wang Ling smiled bitterly: "I hope so." Afterwards, Wang Ling returned to his original state of life. The repeated trips back and forth between the two worlds made him gradually ignore the trends on the battlefield. Before he knew it, more than a month had passed. Their school vacation is very long, but no matter how long it is, there is a limit. It has been here until now, and it is finally the day when school starts. Before leaving, Wang Ling's father planned to give Wang Ling a sum of money for living expenses, but Wang Ling pushed him back: "Dad, I don't want the money. I still have a lot left from last time, which is enough for me to use for one semester." His father didn't force anything on him, but scolded him: "Stop just playing around, find a partner quickly." But his mother glared at him and said to Wang Ling, "Don't be too presumptuous. This is a school. You can learn whatever you can." Wang Ling couldn't laugh or cry at what the second elder said, so he reluctantly agreed, and then left home. However, this time he did not choose to take a taxi to the train station because he did not even buy a train ticket. Instead, he took a taxi directly from his hometown and went to the school in Gaijizhuang. This journey takes nearly 3 hours by taxi. The distance is long, so it naturally costs a lot of money. It only costs a few hundred yuan in one go. If the second elder knew how he traveled, he might be scolded for being extravagant. But in fact, the funds Wang Ling accumulated through the different dimensional system were much more than the two elders thought. These were not painful at all to Wang Ling. "After being away from school for more than 2 months, I finally came back." At this time of Wang Ling's life, to be honest, he was even more free and relaxed at school than at home. After all, his parents were still in charge at home and would nag him from time to time, but there were no restrictions in school. After carrying his luggage back to the dormitory, Wang Ling put on the sheets and quilt, and then lay on the bed, relaxing to his heart's content. Although the soft mattress at home was very comfortable, Wang Ling felt more comfortable after lying back on the hard bed at school. On the first day of the new semester, Wang Ling's unreliable roommates, including Wei Bowen and Zhang Shenke, all came back. Even Dong Fangyuking, who had gone home to recuperate, returned to school with his arm somewhat healed. The subject, Sun Tongtong, was also brought to the dormitory, which made the originally deserted dormitory full of vitality for a while. That night, a few buddies, along with Sun Tongtong, went out to have a feast. The person who chose the location was Wang Ling, but this guy chose the barbecue restaurant that he had had conflicts with Huang Mao and the others. Obviously, his roommates were still brooding about their last experience and were a little scared about this place. But seeing Wang Ling walk in unhurriedly, they plucked up the courage to follow him. Just walked in. What a coincidence, when they were having dinner tonight, they met Huang Mao's group again. Seeing these gangsters, Zhang Shenke and the others were startled and wanted to run away, but Wang Ling smiled and said, "Don't worry, they won't dare to do anything. Let's eat in peace." Although they still had some doubts about Wang Ling's words, They still stayed put and kept observing the gangsters from the corner of their eyes, fearing that they would cause trouble. In fact, it was exactly what they feared. When the gangsters saw them, they actually walked over to them, causing their expressions to change on the spot. But Wang Ling was still drinking beer as if he were an old man, not caring about them at all. Finally, these three people walked to Wang Ling's barbecue table, and instantly showed a flattering smile. "Isn't this that little brother? What a coincidence, you are also here to have barbecue." Upon hearing his words, whether it was Zhang Shenke, Wei Bowen, or Dongfang Yuking and Sun Tongtong, their eyes widened with disbelief on their faces. But Wang Ling didn't care. He glanced at them casually and replied calmly, "Yes, it's a coincidence that you are the only three numbers." Huang Mao replied with a smile, "Isn't that right? That guy Xiao Wu had a fight with someone a few days ago. He didn't expect that he had a back door, so he went straight to arrest him. It took him only 10 days and a half months, I guess not coming." They can laugh about this kind of thing. It seems that they are really familiar with getting into trouble. Wang Lingson laughed and raised his wine glass. "How about it, would you like some?" "Yeah." Hong Mao was excited when he heard it, but Huang Mao glared at him, smiled apologetically and said, "No, no, little brother, you guys can eat, and we won't disturb you. Boss, this table tonight all the money is on me." "Hey, that's good. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 133. Huang Mao would probably never forget the scene when Wang Ling singled out a group of them that night. This student, who looked harmless when he smiled, was a complete mess when he was aggressive, which left quite a shadow on his heart. Drinking with Wang Ling and getting to know each other would naturally be of great benefit to him. However, after spending time with Wang Ling for a long time, he was under considerable psychological pressure and did not dare to have more contact with Wang Ling. That's why this scene happened. Both Wang Ling and Dongfang Yuking are not short of money for a barbecue now, but Wang Ling was happy to see someone help pay for it, and smiled and said, "Thanks, buddy." "No thanks, no thanks, hey, we're going to eat too." After saying that, the three of them chose a table far away from Wang Ling and greeted the waiter. Finally seeing these three people walking away, Wei Bowen and the other two breathed a sigh of relief, and then they all looked at Wang Ling with puzzled expressions. Wang Ling touched his face and asked curiously, "What's wrong, is there something on my face?" "No, Wang Ling, what is going on? Why am I a little confused? I yelled at him last time. Aren't they little gangsters very vindictive? Why now instead of seeking revenge from us, they come here like an audience with Big Brother?" Looking at you, Zhang Sheng blinked and expressed their questions. Wang Ling groaned and was thinking about what reason he should make up, when Wei Bowen suddenly took action and grabbed Wang Ling's arm. Although this action did not scare Wang Ling, it still confused Wang Ling. "What are you doing? Why are you grabbing my arm when you have nothing to do?" Only then did Wei Bowen let go, with a mysterious expression on his face. He guessed, "I just said that you feel a lot stronger recently. These biceps are so strong. To be honest, Wang Ling, are you exercising secretly? Then you beat a few of them in private and were you convinced?" Wang Lingson smiled, and then replied awkwardly, "We are inseparable, you can understand it that way." Strictly speaking, Wei Bowen's guess was correct. Wang Ling was indeed trained in the Red Alert world, and he also beat up those gangsters. But what was different from the speculation was that Wang Ling beat not just a few of them, but more than 30 people. "Sure, Wang Ling." After hearing this, Zhang Sheng patted Wang Ling's arm and said in surprise, "I really didn't notice it before Bowen said it. Your body shape is much stronger than the frail look you had when you were a freshman." "Master." Come on, give it a try. As he spoke, Zhang Sheng stretched out his hand. Wang Ling didn't refuse, and held hands with him with a sinister smile. However, less than 2 seconds later, Zhang Sheng grinned, it hurts, I lose, I lose. Wang Ling let go, and Zhang Sheng shook his hand and praised, this energy is better than mine. It looks like you have worked really hard. To be honest, Wang Ling, did you take the physical fitness test when you were a freshman? The results are so exciting to you, or are you training specifically for the physical fitness test this time? Speaking of that physical fitness test, Wang Ling's face darkened. Even though he is strong now, before he entered the red alert world for training, his physical fitness was really bad. He ranked lowest in the physical fitness test, which is simply his dark history. After being depressed for a while, Wang Ling quickly waved his hand, forget about the physical fitness test, it's bad luck. Come on, drink and eat as much as you want tonight, there is someone who will pay for it anyway. After being separated for several months, it was rare for them to get together. They also got into high spirits tonight, and the meal lasted until 11 o'clock in the evening. The three gangsters had agreed to treat them, but Wang Ling refused to leave. They didn't dare to leave early, so they simply stayed aside, eating peanuts and edamame as they pleased, waiting for Wang Ling and the others to finish. Finally, after having enough wine and dinner, and having a good chat, Wang Ling stood up and stretched, and Wei Bowen and others also stood up. Upon seeing this, Huang Mao hurriedly paid the bill for them, then said goodbye to Wang Ling and left here as if running away. And Wang Ling didn't pay attention to them. After eating so late, he didn't rush back to school. Instead, he went to the KTV and kept high for more than 3 hours. It wasn't until about 2 o'clock in the morning that he was really sleepy and went back. The dormitory is resting. In the first few days of school, Wei Bowen and Zhang Shenkai took a few days off from work to rest. Wang Ling rarely went to Red Alert World in the past few days. He has been accompanying them to eat, drink and have fun. This is a happy life. Haha, it's really like taking care of the elderly. However, after all, people working in the unit are subject to restrictions. After a few days of madness, Wei Bowen and Zhang Shenkai said goodbye to Wang Ling one by one and returned to the unit. Dong Fangyuking was too embarrassed to keep giving Wang Ling dog food. Soon after, she returned to the small house they rented before. She came back from time to visit, but Wang Ling was the only one left in the 4-person room. Wang Ling had long been used to this situation and didn't feel any regrets. After making some adjustments, his life situation returned to its original appearance, with the virtual and real worlds shuttled between each other. After spending another week like this, something happened in the world of Red Alert that was enough to shake Wang Ling. On this morning, Wang Ling was training Xiao He as usual, but suddenly he heard chaotic shouting coming from outside the training ground. "Don't stop me, let us in." "Then don't be so aggressive." "How could you be so aggressive if you didn't stop us? Why don't you get out of the way, even if we come to see our old comrades? Even if it's a visit, I'm not like you. Please calm down." I don't care, get out of my way." Number 101, where are you, come out. Later in the argument, the group of people who suddenly broke in started shouting again, and the content of the shouts made Wang Ling stunned. "Are you calling me?" Out of curiosity, Wang Ling stopped training, took Xiao He with him, and followed the sound. After crossing the row of dormitories, Wang Ling finally saw the group of troublemakers and was stunned on the spot. "Why is it you?" It turned out that this noisy group of surprise visitors turned out to be Wang Ling's comrades from the 5th Company when he was in the barracks. There were more than 30 people when they arrived. They all looked anxious and sad. Of course Lu Hui didn't. "You dared to let them in like this, and now you are trying your best to block them in front of them." Wang Ling's voice also attracted their attention. When Lu Hui saw Wang Ling coming, he had no nerve to stop him. Taking advantage of this opportunity, number 102 immediately passed Lu Hui and ran towards Wang Ling. Wang Ling originally thought that 102 was going to give him a bear hug, but unexpectedly, as soon as this guy got close to Wang Ling, he suddenly punched Wang Ling in the face. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 134. With Wang Ling's current reaction ability, he could have easily dodged and counterattacked this punch, but he didn't do so. Instead, he was knocked down by the punch and half lay on the ground, covering his face. He was completely stunned. This what's going on? Woof woof. When Xiao He saw Wang Ling being beaten, he immediately became angry. He screamed twice and wanted to rush forward to attack number 102, but Wang Ling quickly called out to it, "Xiao He, don't be impulsive, you are not an enemy." When Xiao He heard this, he stopped, but a low growl still came from his throat, and he looked at number 102 warily. As for number 102, he looked at Xiao He and then at Wang Ling. As if he was furious, he stepped forward and pulled Wang Ling up by his collar. "Number 101, number 101, look at you. How decadent you are now. We fought desperately to kill the enemy on the battlefield, but it would be better for you to raise a dog here. I used to regard you as a brother or even a role model, but you are so disappointing now." His words made Wang Ling feel ashamed, but also very confused. The instructor didn't seem as excited as he did last time he came here. 101, number 101. Woohoo. However, what surprised Wang Ling even more was that after number 102 screamed twice, he cried again. Not only him, but after seeing Wang Ling, the faces of other old comrades in the Fifth Company also darkened, and some even shed tears. Seeing this situation, Wang Ling suddenly had an extremely bad premonition in his heart and asked impatiently, "What's wrong? What's going on? Stop crying all the time. What happened?" Number 102 then put down his hand, wiped his tears, and waved. The old comrades from the Fifth Company separated a row of aisles on their own, revealing the two people at the back of the crowd. These two people were also old comrades in arms. Unlike the others, they were carrying the stretcher together, and it seemed like someone was covered on the straw mat above. When Wang Ling saw this scene, his breathing became a little heavy. He walked blankly through the crowd and came to the stretcher. He reached out and touched the straw mat, his fingers even trembling a little. After hesitating and struggling in his heart for a long time, he finally made up his mind and lifted up the straw mat. Buzz. The sight that caught his eye made Wang Ling's brain seem to have received a strong impact, buzzing continuously. Because what was covered under the straw mat turned out to be the body of the fifth instructor. He was lying peacefully on the stretcher, wearing a military uniform, with a deep bullet hole on his forehead, which seemed to tell the cruelty of war. The instructor who trained Wang Ling like a devil, the instructor who took care of Wang Ling in every aspect, the instructor who comforted Wang Ling before Wang Ling joined the battlefield, and the instructor who chatted with Wang Ling at the training base not long ago. The instructor was now a cold corpse. This contrast and impact made Wang Ling feel like his whole body was spinning. In a daze, Wang Ling seemed to recall the instructor's stern but slightly kind face in his mind, looking at him across the distance between life and death, across time and space. However, this scene only lasted for a short moment. The instructor's figure gradually faded away, and then what came into view was a cold corpse. Hoo-hoo. At this time, Wang Ling wanted to calm down, but he couldn't. His whole body was trembling slightly. After a long time, he turned his head with difficulty, his eyes red. Who did this? Number 102 also had red eyes and clenched his fists. That is a very special existence in the Allied base. I asked about her and she is Agent Tanya. Tanya, as soon as he heard the name, Wang Ling, who was originally furious, immediately calmed down. He couldn't help but be calm. Agent Tanya's combat effectiveness in the Allied base was not particularly ferocious. She is the captain of a special force of the Allied forces and the first female member of the special forces. She is good at using two guns and has the ability to kill any ground infantry in an instant. One person can block an entire infantry team, even with Wang Ling's current situation. He's so strong that if he confronts Tanya head-on, there's only one way to die. Not only that, Agent Tanya is also good at rapid explosions and can detonate any building she can touch in an instant. And this is an amphibious combat unit, good at swimming, and can use C4 bombs to destroy all ships it touches. For the coalition forces, this is a terrible nightmare. When Wang Ling recalled this information, number 102 also explained, we received an order to attack an Allied mining truck. During the attack, Tanya suddenly appeared, using double guns, killed more than 10 of our brothers in an instant. The instructor knew that we were no match for her, so he forcibly ordered us to retreat. But Tanya was not going to let us go at all, and chased us all the way. There were 60 of us assigned to that battlefield. But she killed nearly 30 people by herself. The instructor knew that there was no way to escape if this continued, so he let us go first. He stopped, but as soon as he turned around, Tanya had already hit him with a bullet between the eyebrows. When talking about these past events, No 102's expression was particularly excited, including anger, sadness, and fear. It was No 001 who took the next words. Tanya's double guns are really terrifying. A group of us also tried to surround her, but our Babisha submachine guns couldn't touch her at all, so she fought back and killed her. The rest of us were killed. We, who were already desperate, just tried our best to escape. At the critical moment, the Eagle team sent a Rhino tank to stop Tanya, and we were able to escape. We returned to the battlefield to search, but we could only find the instructor's body is dead. No 001's eyes were also red, but he did not appear too excited. He was relatively calm when describing these things. After Wang Ling listened to these processes, his chest heaved violently. On the surface, he didn't answer anything. Instead, he shouted in his head, "Uncle Hey. To be honest, did you arrange this on purpose?" He was angry, but he did not lose his mind in his anger. Over the past few days, Uncle He often warned Wang Ling, but to no avail. Wang Ling had every reason to suspect that this was a tragedy deliberately arranged by Uncle He to provoke Wang Ling. In this red alert world, Wang Ling, as a player, doesn't care much about many things, but the Eagle Squad, the 5th Recruit Company, and the 5th Instructor are the bonds that he cares about very much. Especially the instructor, Wang Ling didn't regard him as a game character at all, but as his elder brother. Uncle He has human emotions, so he can naturally understand Wang Ling's mood. The entire Red Alert world is a game system tailor-made for Wang Ling, and he has every reason to do so. However, while Wang Ling values emotions, he is also stubborn. If it was really arranged by Uncle He, then Wang Ling would be extremely disappointed. It is still unknown whether he will touch the other dimensional system again. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 135. After hearing Wang Ling's question, Uncle He was silent for a while, and then asked, "Am I so unbearable in your heart?" "Uncle He, I hope from the bottom of my heart that this was not arranged by you. The entire Red Alert world was built by me. I said it was not arranged by me. Do you believe it?" "I believe it," Wang Ling replied almost without hesitation. "Uncle He, this artificial intelligence brain of yours is sometimes very annoying and has no authority. It makes me miserable. However, I have not seen you say you lied, so as long as you say it, I believe it." "Okay. Originally, I wanted to be like you humans and admit it out of anger. Since you said this, I will tell you the truth. Uncle Hay was pleased and at the same time became a little angry. I said it a long time ago. I told you that I will not take the initiative to interfere in the affairs of the Red Alert world. I did not lie to you. I only gave the characters and judgments of all the characters in the Red Alert world. How to develop and judge is theirs. Things, the main plot is driven by time, and the details are described by you. Your instructor's death this time was not my arrangement. In the final analysis, it is still on you. On my body, Wang Ling was confused. Uncle Hay continued to answer, yes, the Eagle Squadron you are responsible for also went to the battlefield assigned by the 5th instructor to assist. This mission was originally supposed to be carried out by your Eagle Squadron, but it was because you were missing. This real captain, now the Eagle team has also encountered their own troubles and can't escape, so they can only send the 5th instructor and the others, so this result is achieved. I believe that if it were you, there will definitely be a way to deal with Tanya's surprise attack, so I'm not wronging you by saying that the root cause lies with you. Wang Ling fell silent, feeling pain in his heart. But Uncle Hay did not give up this opportunity to exhort him, and continued, when it comes to me, it is not completely untouchable. You have also noticed that other people will disappear directly after they die in battle, but why is your instructor's body keep it? I didn't force him to keep it. Let you see what the consequences of your inaction during this period have been. Boy, war is cruel. No one is immune in this battlefield. However, you are the only exception. You are not a member of this game. You are a player and an experiencer. Even if you die in the game, you will die in reality. Death, but the different dimensional system is not just a waste. You can use the different dimensional system to gradually become stronger. While getting rid of the threat of death, you can also save more brothers who fight with you. Look up and look at these brothers and comrades in front of you. If the plot is allowed to develop like this, none of them will be able to survive on the battlefield. But if you return to the battlefield, a large part of these people will survive. Even if it's not for anything else, you should think about them. It's time to think about your instructor's hatred. Uncle Hay had been holding back these words for a long time, and today he finally found the opportunity to say them out in succession. After saying this, Uncle Hay finally ran out of words. Okay, it's useless to talk more. It's up to you how to choose. As for Wang Ling, after hearing Uncle Hay's words, his previous rejection of the battlefield finally began to waver. The comrades in the 5th company also added fuel to the fire. Just when Wang Ling was confused and hesitant, this group of people shouted in unison, Number 101, go back, we need you. Number 102 also added separately, we can't avenge the instructor, but you can. We need you on the battlefield, and we also need you. We need you to avenge the instructor. Under a series of stimulations, Wang Ling's heart also surged. After looking at the instructor's body and then at those hopeful eyes, Wang Ling finally sighed leisurely, brothers, I understand, go back and wait for me. Agent Tanya, sooner or later I will do it with my own hands, kill her. After Wang Ling was afraid of the battlefield and lingered for several months, he was finally deluded by various emotions. The captain of the Eagle Squadron who once dominated the battlefield was finally back. Okay, 101, we are waiting for you, number 102 said. Tears could not help falling from the corners of his eyes, but he did not choke anymore and gave Wang Ling a bear hug. Others also stepped forward and hugged each other one after another. Everyone took the opportunity to place their hopes on Wang Ling. In the transfer station, after hearing Wang Ling make this decision with his own ears, Uncle Hay finally smiled, smiling from the bottom of his heart, good boy. I've been waiting for this decision for too long, and I finally got it. It is not easy to overcome this psychological barrier, and not everyone can even overcome it. After so long, you finally succeeded in breaking through. As the creator of the Red Alert world and the steward of the different dimensional system, Wang Ling decided to return to the battlefield. He was happier and more gratified than anyone else. As for the soldiers of the 5th Company, they were originally requested from the battlefield base. Naturally, they could not stay too long in this training base. They hugged Wang Lingxiang one by one. After achieving their purpose, it was time for them to return to the battlefield. Wang Ling watched them all leave. Not only did he sigh leisurely, but he was stunned for a long time before he found Lu Hui and told him his idea of returning to the battlefield. When Lu Hui heard this, he also showed an excited expression. "Brother Ling, you have finally decided. Do you know that from the time you just retreated from the battlefield, Brother Xiaoping has told me to be waiting for you at any time? Returning to the battlefield, these few months have passed, and I have finally waited for this day." Wang Ling was stunned for a moment, then smiled ashamedly. The reason why emotion was assigned to this police dog training base was really not to be devolved, but to give Wang Ling a chance to make a transition. Wang Ling also silently recorded this feeling in his heart. Afterwards, Lu Hui hurriedly set about notifying and handling related matters. As for Wang Ling, after everyone left, he focused on Xiao He again. Over the past few days, Xiao He has become more and more able to guess Wang Ling's thoughts. It seems to have guessed that Wang Ling is about to leave. From time to time, it will make low sounds from its throat, as if it is wailing. Listening to this voice, the tip of Wang Ling's nose became a little sore. He squatted down and rubbed Xiao He's forehead. After a long time, he said, "Xiao He, I'm leaving. Thank you for your company these past few months, makes me feel that I have a fulfilling life every day. Remember to be obedient during my absence, I will come back to see you when I am free." Woof woof woof. Woof woof woof. Xiao He didn't seem to agree with Wang Ling leaving. He started barking like crazy and even bit Wang Ling's trouser leg and refused to let go. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 136. Xiao He's appearance made Wang Ling at a loss for a moment. Although he had stayed at this police dog training base for so long, Wang Ling was not reluctant to leave. Only Xiao He had been with Wang Ling for so long, and Wang Ling couldn't let go of him at all. However, Wang Ling has decided to return to the battlefield. If he can't let it go, he must let it go. He looked at Xiao He's state, suppressed the reluctance in his heart, and yelled, "Xiao He, let go." Xiao He could also hear Wang Ling's dissatisfaction, and finally let go, but he kept moaning, obviously very sad. Wang Ling could only sigh after hearing this. Not long after, Lu Hui finally returned and reported the news. After all, Wang Ling has been away from the battlefield for a long time, and the procedures for returning to the battlefield are also troublesome. He has already processed it as soon as possible. As for the return time, it is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Special personnel and tracked vehicles will come to pick him up. Since he was not leaving today, Wang Ling simply made up his mind and spent the last day with Xiao He. On this day, Wang Ling didn't train Xiao He anymore. He just indulged in Xiao He's indulgence so that he could have a good time. The news that Wang Ling was about to leave was spread through Finiu, and before night, all the trainers in the training camp knew about it. At the bonfire party that night, the group of people did not talk about any other topics. Instead, they gathered together and sang farewell and blessing songs for Wang Ling. Wang Ling had experienced this kind of scene before, and he was the one who sang along with him that time. Unexpectedly, he would become the one listening to the song so quickly. As he listened, Wang Ling couldn't help but shed tears. When they were about to leave, Wang Ling did not send Xiao He to the kennel prematurely. Throughout the bonfire party, Xiao He lay in Wang Ling's arms, enjoying the last warmth and companionship. However, there is always a banquet in the world. After the bonfire party was over and he stayed with Xiaohe for a while, Wang Ling finally sent Xiaohe back to the kennel. After washing up and preparing tomorrow's luggage in advance, Wang Ling lay on the bed and chatted with Xiaohao and the others about some random topics, then closed his eyes, contacted Uncle He and returned to the transit station. Seeing the changes in Wang Ling, Uncle He was extremely pleased now. He looked at Wang Ling with a smile and said, "Boy, congratulations, you have successfully crossed this hurdle. I will go to the battlefield tomorrow. I have been beaten before. Shouldn't you consider your idle mid-level exchange?" Wang Ling replied without hesitation, "Yes, it's time to strengthen." When Wang Ling returned to the battlefield this time, he went with hatred and goals. With his current strength and military type, he was no match for Agent Tanya. Therefore, it is necessary to use the extra-dimensional system to strengthen the body and switch arms. Only then can it be possible to kill Tanya and survive better on the battlefield. Uncle He nodded with satisfaction, "Okay. Before redeeming, please guess how many points you have accumulated in total now." Wang Ling thought for a while and guessed, "The last time we left the battlefield, we only had 9,000 outcrops. Counting the survival points accumulated in the past few months, it should be close to 10,000, right?" Uncle He shook his head mysteriously, "No. Boy, listen up, you have a full 16,788 points left." "What the hell? More than 16,000 points," Wang Ling was shocked after hearing this. "Uncle He, you are playing tricks on me, how is that possible?" "Ha ha ha." Uncle He smiled, "I guess you won't believe it. Indeed, with the speed at which you accumulate survival points alone, you can't even reach 10,000 points now, but don't forget, there is a regulation on the accumulation of points. But for the soldiers under your command, the points accumulated from killing enemies will also be counted on your head." "But didn't I leave the battlefield? Where did it come from?" "No, Uncle He, you mean the Eagle Squad." Wang Ling just wanted to refute, but suddenly thought of the Eagle Squad. Before leaving the battlefield, the only soldiers under Wang Ling's command were the Eagle Squadron. Uncle He nodded calmly, confirming Wang Ling's guess. But Wang Ling was confused, "But I am no longer the captain of the Eagle team, what are they doing?" Before he could finish asking, Uncle He took the initiative to speak, "No, you have always been. Sunday who only temporarily replaced you, and the Eagle Squad always only recognized you as the captain, so the points they accumulated from killing enemies, it will still be counted on your head." After hearing the news, Wang Ling was completely stunned. After a long time, he smiled helplessly, "Why are these sticks so stubborn? Uncle He, you are also serious. Why didn't you tell us this kind of news in advance?" "Me?" Uncle He crossed his arms and said calmly, "What are you telling you for? In your previous state, what's the point of telling you?" Wang Lingshan laughed, then shook his head and threw all the shame behind him, and asked, "Uncle He, how is the Eagle Squadron now? I heard you said that you were going to support other battlefields. The original battlefield has ended. What's the result? Also, you said that the Eagle Squad is in trouble now, what kind of trouble is it?" Uncle He pressed his hand, "Don't worry, I don't want to answer you these questions. You will return to the battlefield tomorrow. Then you can go and ask the Eagle Squad yourself." Wang Ling nodded, "Okay. Now, Uncle He, help me redeem the intermediate physical fitness enhancer." Uncle He didn't say anything. He snapped his fingers and a black vortex appeared out of thin air in front of the redemption system, from which a syringe slowly floated out. Wang Ling took it casually, observed it several times, and asked, "Is this the intermediate strengthening agent? It looks no different from the basic strengthening agent." Uncle He denied with a smile, "Of course there is no difference in appearance, but the efficacy of this potion is far beyond that of basic potions. Wang Ling didn't say anything more. He took the strengthening agent and was about to inject it into his body, but he hesitated at the moment. Wang Ling still remembers the pain of the last basic strengthening injection. Now that he has switched to a more powerful intermediate strengthening agent, will the pain be more severe? And with the 80% success rate, can I get through it? Uncle He ignored his hesitation and just encouraged him, "Boy, after you have been promoted to the 10th level Soldier King level as a mobilization soldier, your body's endurance can fully withstand the intermediate level enhanced transformation. The success rate is far better than 100%, 80 is much higher. As long as you survive this step, the sky is high enough for birds to fly, and the sea is wide enough for fish to jump." The simple encouragement finally strengthened Wang Ling's determination. He nodded, gritted his teeth, and injected the intermediate enhancement into his body. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 137. Snort. Just after the injection, the strengthening potion showed super activity and quickly surged throughout Wang Ling's body. The pain that came in an instant was somewhat unbearable even with Wang Ling's current physical condition. However, the effectiveness of the intermediate enhancer is still in the preliminary stage. After Wang Ling's body became completely active and wandered through, the formal strengthening finally began. The first target targeted by the strengthening agents was Wang Ling's muscles. These strengthening agents were like a sudden army. They covered all the muscles in Wang Ling's body in an instant, and then corroded like a super acid. With the severe pain caused Wang Ling to roar like a wild beast from his throat, and his whole body convulsed violently. However, the corrosion speed was too slow, just like cutting flesh with a dull knife. It caused Wang Ling great pain, but he couldn't end it quickly and could only endure it slowly. After a long time, Wang Ling finally couldn't bear it anymore. He knelt down on one knee, crossed his arms, gritted his teeth and endured it desperately. After this continued for a period of time, the corrosion of the muscles finally ended, and then repair and strengthening began. This process was not as painful as expected, but it was the same as last time. Almost every part of my body was itchy. All the feelings were continuously transmitted to the brain, making Wang Ling a little unbearable. He knelt down on his knees, pounded the ground with his fists, and almost broke his steel teeth at the same time. Wang Ling couldn't remember how long the repair and strengthening had lasted. It might have been just a moment, or it might have been dozens of minutes. In short, he had no sense of time in his mind at all, and was just focusing on enduring the itching. Finally, for who knows how long, the muscle repair was completed. However, this was just one of the steps in the intermediate strengthening process. Wang Ling just breathed a sigh of relief, but before he could relax completely, the intermediate strengthening agent began to sweep through the bones of Wang Ling's body again. I don't know what this strengthening agent is made of. It's really scary. Even Wang Ling's bones couldn't withstand the blow of the strengthening agent and were almost completely shattered in a short period of time. The pain that came from this moment almost caused Wang Ling to collapse completely. He fell to the ground screaming and rolling wildly, as if he was crazy. Although the pain was intense, fortunately it did not last long, and Wang Ling did not suffer for too long. However, the subsequent repair and strengthening of the bones also caused Wang Ling a lot of pain. Although it was not as intense as when it was broken, it was enough to make Wang Ling go crazy and scream. On the side, Uncle He looked at Wang Ling's state and was worried for him. "Boy, hold on. Ah! Ah! Ah!" The screaming continued, almost hysterically, and soon Wang Ling's voice became hoarse. After continuing for a while, all the bones in his body were finally repaired and strengthened. However, the intermediate strengthening still does not end here. After torturing Wang Ling's muscles and bones, the remaining potency of the intermediate strengthening agent began to sweep through Wang Ling's body surface. For a moment, Wang Ling felt as if he was in a sea of fire, and his whole body seemed to be burning. This kind of pain is simply unbearable for ordinary people, but Wang Ling had just endured the pain of his bones being destroyed. In comparison, the strengthening of his body surface was not that intense now. But even so, Wang Ling would not feel better. He curled up on the ground, his body trembling. Although he stopped screaming, his breathing began to tremble. Almost every inch of skin throughout his body was wailing, and all the pain signals were concentratedly transmitted to the brain. Wang Ling was really suffering. After continuing for a long time, the third round of intermediate strengthening finally came to an end and was successfully completed. Then the remaining medicinal power penetrated into every part of Wang Ling's body. After 3 rounds of strengthening, Wang Ling was also exhausted, but the remaining medicinal power was just nourishing his body and spirit, absorbing it like nectar after a long drought. When all the medicinal power is absorbed, this painful intermediate strengthening is finally over. After successfully surviving these 3 rounds of torture, Wang Ling's strengthening was obviously very successful. However, recalling the pain just now, Wang Ling was still frightened and lay on the ground gasping for air. Haha, congratulations, congratulations. Seeing his current appearance, Uncle He also loosened his fists with a smile on his face. Congratulations, the strengthening was successful. But Wang Ling had no intention of paying attention to him. After a long time, he sat up, covering his forehead and breathing heavily. What a terrible enhancer, it almost killed me. Uncle He nodded. If you want to get something, you have to pay something. From basic to intermediate level, this is a substantial strengthening, and it will naturally be extremely painful. It is precisely because of the existence of this pain that the success rate is, because not everyone has the perseverance to persevere. But, boy, you succeeded. If nothing else, with your perseverance alone, you are qualified to stand among the strong. Wang Ling didn't respond to him, just looked at his palm. He clenched his fist tentatively and then opened it again. In this simple movement, Wang Ling seemed to feel the explosive power hidden in his palm. Then, Wang Ling slammed the ground in front of Uncle He. The shock force of this moment sent Wang Ling flying 1 meter high. This was Wang Ling's first experience with this enhanced power. It was a little difficult to control, and his body was a little unstable in the air. But fortunately, he landed on his feet in the end and didn't make a fool of himself. This preliminary test made Wang Ling's face full of surprise. Taking advantage of this fresh energy, Wang Ling waved his fist in the transfer station. After the strengthening of the body, all comprehensive indicators have made a leap. In addition to strength, there is also speed. During the test, Wang Ling swung his fists like the wind, extremely fast and fierce. His fists even landed with a strong wind, and he felt so smooth when he swung them. Then he started to test his leg skills. Every side kick and high whip kick was very powerful. One leg swept, followed by a continuous leg wind. This punch and kick were filled with explosive power, which made Wang Ling very satisfied. After a simple test, Wang Ling asked Uncle He to change the structure of the transfer station according to the scene he had imagined. Suddenly, several boxing sandbags and wooden dummies appeared in the secret room. Wang Ling felt uncomfortable punching out of thin air. He immediately started hitting after seeing these devices. However, within a moment, the sandbags were leaked and the wooden dummy was completely broken. When I visited the grave in the afternoon, it seemed that I had suffered a heat stroke. This was my first heat stroke in my life. The feeling of dizziness and nausea was really enough. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 138. Looking at the broken wooden mannequin and the continuously scattered sand, Wang Ling was filled with surprise. It was only a preliminary test just now, and it has not been completely released to attack. If it uses all its strength, what will be the result? Tisk, tisk, boy, are you satisfied with this power? Before Wang Ling could calm down, Uncle He asked. After hearing this, Wang Ling laughed exaggeratedly, satisfied, quite satisfied. With my current strength and speed, the pain I just endured is completely worth it. Uncle He also nodded happily. As the steward of the different dimensional system, Wang Ling became stronger, and he also liked to see it. After laughing, Wang Ling tentatively shook his fist, and then summed up, during the basic strengthening, the strengthening agent seems to be strengthening various tissue systems in my body. After strengthening, it is stronger than that of normal people, it's a little stronger. This intermediate strengthening, the strengthening agent seems to be strengthening my muscles, bones and skin, and the effect is more immediate than the basic strengthening. So what will be strengthened by the advanced strengthening? Thinking of this, Wang Ling couldn't help but look at the locked black exchange boxes below the intermediate enhancement, with undisguised passion in his eyes. But Uncle He laughed at him. Boy, don't be too ambitious. You have just finished the intermediate enhancement, and you are thinking about high-level enhancement? You have also experienced the pain of intermediate enhancement, and you know how much suffering it is. This advanced enhancement, it will only be more painful, and with your current endurance, the probability of failure is probably very high. Upon hearing this failure rate, Wang Ling suddenly became excited. Yes, the intermediate level of enhancement is already terrifying. How about the advanced level of enhancement that is even more terrifying? And once it failed, it would be death. Even if Wang Ling had already thought about it, he would not dare to try it easily. To unlock the intermediate level redemption, you need to accumulate a total of 10,000 points. To unlock the advanced enhancement, you need 100,000 points. You are still far away from it now. Take advantage of the process of accumulating points to strengthen it on the battlefield, Uncle He tooted. He opened his mouth and hit Wang Ling mercilessly. Wang Ling was not angry, but nodded calmly to express his understanding. However, then he remembered something and said, "Yes, Uncle He, give me a dagger." As soon as he finished speaking, a black vortex suddenly appeared in front of Wang Ling, and an ancient dagger floated out of it. After taking the dagger, Wang Ling slashed the palm of his left hand without saying a word. After strengthening the muscles and skin, Wang Ling's skin is now as strong as a rock. With this knife, Wang Ling also spent some time to cut a long and deep wound. When looking at the introduction to intermediate enhancement, it was introduced above that intermediate enhancement will gain simple self-healing ability. Wang Ling also needs to test this ability. The wounds on the palms would also feel painful, but compared with the severe pain during strengthening, these were nothing at all. Wang Ling didn't even frown. There was also blood dripping on the wound, and the speed was not slow. It was no different from normal people in this aspect. However, after a brief observation, Wang Ling was surprised, because granulation was growing around the wound at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the entire wound was gradually healing. Although this speed is not as fast as the 3-star elite soldiers in the Red Alert world, it is much faster than normal healing. This wound of about 10 centimeters lasted nearly a minute. It was completely healed, not even a scar was left. From scratch, he strengthened his physical fitness, and gained this incredible ability. Wang Ling was so happy that he couldn't stop giggling. Uncle He didn't bother him, and just looked at him calmly. After a long period of time, he interrupted and said, "Okay, just be happy and happy. You will get used to it gradually in the future. Now, let's consider whether to switch arms." When this conversion project was mentioned, Wang Ling finally gave in and nodded, "We must convert." Although the Shixing mobilization troops are strong, they are not invincible, at least they are not Tanya's opponent. Uncle He asked again, "So, have you decided what kind of army you will switch to?" Wang Ling really thought about this. Elite combat soldiers. Elite combat soldiers, corresponding to Agent Tanya, are a hero-level unit exclusive to the Allied forces in a certain version of Red Alert. They are also the only ground infantry unit in the entire Allied forces that can fight against Agent Tanya. If Wang Ling wants revenge, he must be an elite combat soldier. However, Uncle He shook his head in embarrassment. No. Why not? Please carefully look at the precautions for conversion. The arms you can convert must be the arms that have already appeared in your force at this stage, otherwise it will break the rules of the game. The current Red Alert world has not reached that step yet, and there is no this is a branch of elite combat soldiers. Why is it so troublesome? Wang Ling scratched his head. Uncle He, what kind of military unit can you recommend? Uncle He answered without thinking, terrorists. Nonsense. Wang Ling became angry. Uncle He, are you kidding me? That soldier is like a human bomb. He is strapped with explosives all over his body and will perish with the enemy. If I switch to the soldier, am I looking for death? Change to another one. Uncle He said again, crazy Ivan. Nonsense. Wang Ling then scolded, Uncle He, if you want me dead, just say so. There is no need to play tricks on me like this. Crazy Ivan is just a little better than a terrorist. A bomb maniac, his whole body is covered with bombs, and he doesn't distinguish between friend and foe random explosions. How can I fight with this thing? Uncle He also learned to joke. He suggested to two soldiers in a row that Wang Ling be the first and second largest. However, Uncle He disagreed. He spread his hands and said, this is your game. You are the one who is experiencing it. You have to decide which arm to choose. Otherwise, if you leave the decision to me, it will be too busy. Cut. Wang Ling rolled his eyes, but he deeply agreed with Uncle He's statement. If the decision-making power is really given to Uncle He, and Wang Ling becomes a terrorist or crazy Ivan, then he will have to destroy the extra-dimensional system. After calming down, Wang Ling held his chin and thought for a moment. Nowadays, there are really few arms for Wang Ling to choose from. The only ones with combat capabilities seem to be anti-aircraft infantry and magnetic blast infantry. Wang Ling thought over and over again between the two arms and finally made a decision, magnetic explosive infantry. Uncle He, it's decided, I'll convert into magnetic explosive infantry. Can. Uncle He nodded, then snapped his fingers, and Wang Ling fell into a trance for a moment. In a trance, Wang Ling seemed to have a memory injected into his mind out of thin air. This memory is not mixed with any emotions, but only about the use of weapons and various trainings of the magnetic infantry. It lasted for a long time and ended only when the training of the magnetic infantry in the memory reached the passing standard. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 139. When Wang Ling entered the world of Red Alert for the first time, he also had a memory in his mind. That time was just an identity assigned to Wang Ling by the system. Wang Ling was like an actor reading the script before acting. It didn't have a big impact on him. But now the memory injection this time was a bit high-end. Wang Ling browsed it once, as if he had experienced it himself, and for a while he couldn't tell the truth from the false. However, foreign memories could not control Wang Ling after all. After being confused for a while, Wang Ling quickly identified his own experience and foreign memories. However, Wang Ling firmly remembered the use and combat of magnetic blast infantry that he learned from this foreign memory. Obviously I have not experienced any relevant training, but now Wang Ling is already a qualified magnetic blast infantryman. After sorting out these things, Wang Ling recalled the use of the magnetic blast device of the magnetic blast infantry, and couldn't help but marvel, is this a change of arms? It's incredible that it can inject memories and force changes like this. Uncle He said with a smile, you are not the only one who is forced to change. The exchange system is like a modifier. If you switch arms, everyone related to you in the game will get this memory without feeling any strangeness. Is this the so-called seamless connection in the introduction? The game process has not changed at all, but I have become a magnetic blast infantry in their memories. Wang Ling suddenly understood, but then he asked, just like this, won't it be a little confusing? Is it confusing? I don't think that the others just changed their memories, but there is no change in themselves. It's just that you changed the army, Uncle He explained. After Wang Ling heard this, he gradually accepted this transformation method of the different dimensional system. However, after all, it was the first time to switch arms, so there were still problems. The novice magnetic blast infantry is not as strong as the 10-star mobilization soldiers. After switching to the magnetic blast infantry, the mobilization soldiers king that I had worked hard to improve before will be useless yet. Uncle He shook his head and smiled confidently, no. The reward of the king of mobilization soldiers has been given to you, not only in reality, but also in the game. Before you can develop the magnetic storm infantry, if you encounter danger, you can transform into it at any time. Mobilize soldiers and take out the king of soldiers level Babisha submachine gun to deal with the crisis. However, you have to note that if the magnetic blast infantry wants to upgrade, it must use the magnetic blast infantry's equipment and attack methods to transform into mobilizing soldiers to protect themselves, but it doesn't count as experience. Understood? When Wang Ling heard this, he finally lost his worries. Up to now, Wang Ling has experienced 2 intermediate level exchanges in a row, and only the last one, the experience book of arms, is left. Looking at this last item, Wang Ling hesitated for a moment, then informed Uncle He and exchanged the experience book for the magnetic blast infantry unit. Although this so-called experience book has the word book in it, in fact, it has no entity. It is just like a memory when switching arms. In this memory, Wang Ling seemed to have received special training in the magnetic explosive infantry unit, and was more comfortable with the weapons and attack methods of the magnetic explosive infantry. After Wang Ling browsed through the memory and digested it, he was directly promoted to a 1-star veteran in the magnetic blast infantry. Now, Wang Ling has experienced all the items in the intermediate redemption, and Uncle He made the final statistics. The 3 redemption items have cost you a total of 15,000 points, and now there are only 1,788 points left. Compared to before, I'm a lot poorer. Come on, kid, rejoin the battlefield, and your points will gradually accumulate. To be honest, Wang Ling didn't listen to these words at all. This change of arms injected a memory into him, and the experience book of arms gave him another memory. After digesting these 2 memories in succession, Wang Ling now also felt tired, and he felt as if his brain was not used enough, and he was dizzy. After Uncle He finished speaking, Wang Ling ignored Uncle He and returned to the real world. During the basic strengthening, Wang Ling's 3 roommates were all there, and it was said that he was shaking violently in bed. With this intermediate enhancement, Wang Ling seemed to be dishonest in reality. His bed was neat before entering the red alert world, but after waking up, it was in a mess, and he even rolled directly onto the floor. I don't know how violently Wang Ling struggled in reality when he was strengthened. Now Wang Ling could be said to be too sleepy to care about any of this. He made the bed in a few moments, lay down on it and fell asleep directly. This time, Wang Ling slept soundly and deeply. He forgot the time in his sleep. When he opened his eyes again, it was already dawn the next day. After getting up, he looked at the time and saw that it was still very early. Wang Ling stretched and after washing, he went to the school playground. After the intermediate strengthening, Wang Ling wanted to experience the changes in this body in reality, and at the same time become familiar with the control of this surge of power. As before, Wang Ling came to the playground and first did some morning sprinting exercises. After the basic strengthening, Wang Ling's physical strength and speed have increased significantly. After the intermediate strengthening, the increase is even more obvious. Simulating the starting signal in his mind, Wang Ling immediately launched it like a cannonball, almost twice as fast as before, much faster than a professional sprinter. While sprinting, Wang Ling could hear the whistling wind in his ears, as if it was accompaniment to his morning exercises. After a quarter of an hour of continuous sprinting, Wang Ling had almost reached the limit of mileage he could run before, but he didn't feel any fatigue at all. Wang Ling couldn't help but be surprised by this change. However, today he did not deliberately train himself too hard, and he had stopped sprinting at this time. Later, Wang Ling began to practice other events that he could think of, such as military marching, boxing, push-ups, frog jumps, etc. These training items that he was already familiar with now have a different feeling. Junxin punched as fast as he could, but some afterimages appeared. In the frog leap, you can jump 3 meters high and 4 meters away, and you can jump around the entire track more than 10 times in one breath. Do hundreds of push-ups with one finger, effortlessly. After finishing, you punch the ground with a punch, leaving an obvious concave arc on the rubber track. Originally, Wang Ling could only see all these changes in movies, but now they have actually appeared on his body. This feeling surprised Wang Ling and made him feel more satisfied at the same time. After all the training programs were over, Wang Ling still didn't feel much tired and was still very active. This intermediate enhancement not only increased Wang Ling's strength and speed, but also made great progress in endurance. With his current physical fitness, if he goes back to the competition in the barracks, he will probably be able to cross the entire first company by himself without feeling tired. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 140. Incredible. Wang Ling looked at his hands and then at the school's rubber track. He was happy but also a little surprised. Whether it is basic strengthening or intermediate strengthening, all of this is only completed in the different dimensional system, but in reality, Wang Ling's body is also changing accordingly. Professor Li Dong had previously vowed that no one could achieve deep hypnosis, but Wang Ling had experienced it personally and had already made some achievements. This intermediate level strengthened body, in the real world, might look like a human being. Is it the same thing? And if this news is really known to Professor Li Dong and the theory is proven in practice, I am afraid that this old professor will also be happy, right? Of course, this can only be thought about. The different dimensional system is too sensitive in this world. Wang Ling dare not reveal it, otherwise his life will not be peaceful. He didn't feel anything bad during the morning exercise, but after it was over, Wang Ling found that his stomach was already protesting. This body now consumes a lot of energy every day. After shaking off the sweat from his forehead, Wang Ling calmed down and went to the school cafeteria. It's really not easy for the canteen staff. They have to be busy making breakfast early in the morning. If it weren't for the fact that the amount of food provided by each portion at many windows was getting smaller and smaller, Wang Ling couldn't help but want to give them a thumbs up. This morning, Wang Ling ordered a bunch of snacks and vegetable pancakes, as well as a hot drink. The food could be said to be relatively simple. There was nothing special when buying snacks, but something unexpected happened when receiving hot drinks. Unless the students want to take away the drinks here, many of them are served in wooden cups and can be recycled. However, Wang Ling's strength was soaring now, and he had just finished his morning exercise, so he couldn't control his strength. As soon as he took the wooden cup, he crushed it completely in front of the landlady, and the hot drink splashed everywhere. Yes. Originally, the landlady was still smiling, but this time, she was startled, and then she became somewhat serious. Wang Ling was embarrassed and said quickly, "How much does this wooden cup cost? I'll pay for it. Give me another cup in a disposable plastic cup." The landlady's expression relaxed a little. Although this wooden cup is not very valuable, Wang Ling felt a little embarrassed after doing this. When he paid the bill and took the disposable plastic cup, he was extra careful for fear of accidentally making a mistake. The plastic cup was crushed again. That morning, while Wang Ling was eating, he was laughing at himself. The sudden increase in strength is a good thing, but you still have to put some effort into practicing the control of strength, otherwise you will have headaches in the future. After returning to the dormitory and taking a nap, Wang Ling woke up and started practicing related operations. When it comes to this exercise, it's quite simple. He pinches whatever is fragile in the dormitory. Many things in the dormitory were damaged that day. But the result was not bad. After destroying so many things, Wang Ling became more and more able to control the power of his body. Afterwards, life returned to its original state. It was not until night that Wang Ling lay on the bed and entered the world of Red Alert. In the Red Alert world, Wang Ling spent his last day at the police dog training base. He looked at the familiar furnishings in the dormitory, listened to the noisy snoring of his roommates, and thought about the little ones in the kennel who didn't know whether they were asleep or not. Hey, Wang Ling felt a little sad about separation again. However, what should be separated must eventually be separated. After Wang Ling sighed, he closed his eyes and fell asleep peacefully. The next day, Wang Ling woke up with many trainers, had breakfast after a morning run, and then went to pack his luggage. During this period, the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle sent to pick him up from the battlefield had also arrived. The person who came to pick him up was also an old acquaintance of Wang Ling, and turned out to be King Xiaoping. However, the current Xiaoping Wang is no longer the second lieutenant. It seems that because of winning that battlefield, Xiaoping Wang has now been promoted to captain, which is higher than the commander and person in charge of the police dog training base. After seeing Wang Ling, Xiaoping Wang smiled particularly brightly. Wang Ling, I have been waiting for this day for too long. You kid finally looked away. Wang Ling smiled, made a military salute, and asked, Brother Zhao, why did you come to pick him up in person? King Xiaoping laughed, doesn't this show that he values you? This King Xiaoping is still the same as before, very realistic and down-to-earth when answering questions. But Wang Ling just took this trick, smiled and didn't say much, picked up his luggage and walked out of the police dog training base with Xiaoping Wang. On this morning, all the trainers in the training base, including the commander and Lu Hui, were not working. Instead, they gathered at the base gate to see Wang Ling off. After passing through the crowd, Wang Ling waved to them. After yesterday's feelings, Wang Ling could gradually look down on the parting now. But woof woof woof. Woof woof woof. From behind the crowd, Wang Ling's familiar barking sound suddenly came out, and then a figure with a black back quickly jumped out. Besides Xiao He, who else could this He be? Xiao He now had many scars on his forehead and his eyes were slightly bloodshot. He came up and bit Wang Ling's luggage and pulled it back hard. When Wang Ling saw it, he was suddenly stunned. He was dragged by Xiao He for a long time, and then he became angry. Who let it out? Xiao He is Wang Ling's closest partner in this training base. No matter who he lets go, he can't let go of Xiao He. He could say goodbye calmly to other people, but for Xiao He, he couldn't do it. So today, Wang Ling didn't even feed Xiao He his breakfast, and didn't dare to let him out, for fear that he wouldn't be able to control his emotions. But now, Xiao He suddenly ran over, which caught Wang Ling off guard. The person who answered was Fat Niu. Brother Ling, it's unfair. None of us let it go. Looking at it, it must have opened the door by itself. Nonsense, such a thick door. Wang Ling just wanted to get angry, but suddenly noticed the scars on Xiao He's forehead and body, and suddenly closed his mouth. Xiao He, it looks like he really struggled to get injured and was forced out. Looking at its bloodshot pupils, this guy couldn't have slept all night, right? Ouch. Ouch. While Wang Ling was silent, Xiao He also made a continuous low sound from his throat. It looked like he was extremely sad, which made Wang Ling feel sad. The other trainers did not intervene and just watched silently. At the same time, tears welled up in some people's eyes. I wonder how many readers like Xiaohei, the police dog. It is true that Wang Ling will be separated from Xiaohei soon, but Xiaohei will appear again in the future.